My mother-in-law poisoned my son against me on a Sunday afternoon in March. I wasn't there when it happened. I was at home, preparing dinner, thinking everything was fine. My husband, Derek, had taken our son Marcus to visit his parents, a routine weekend trip that I usually avoided because Evelyn Morrison had never made me feel welcome. Marcus was 8 years old enough to understand words, young enough to believe the adults in his life were telling the truth. When Derek brought him home that evening, Marcus was quiet, unusually quiet. He picked at his dinner, avoiding eye contact. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked. He looked at his father first, checking for permission or guidance. I wasn't sure which. "Grandma said something." "What did she say?" "She said—" He hesitated. "She said your family is poor, that Dad's family is the successful ones. She said we live in a smaller house because of your side." I felt the words land like stones in my stomach. "She said that?" "She said it's not your fault, that some people just don't have as much, but that I should be grateful for the Morrison side of the family because they're the ones who actually have money." I looked at Derek. He was studying his plate, face flushed. "Did you hear her say this?" "I was in the other room. I didn't hear everything." "But you heard some of it?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Marcus, go wash up for bed. We'll talk more tomorrow." My son left the table. I waited until I heard his footsteps on the stairs. Then I turned to my husband. "Your mother told our 8-year-old son that my family is poor? She didn't mean it like that. How else could she have meant it? She told him we live in a smaller house because of my side. She told him the Morrisons are the successful ones. She made him feel ashamed of half of his own family. She's proud of what her family has built. She didn't mean to hurt anyone. She told our child that his mother comes from nothing. That's not pride. That's cruelty." Derek had no response. "What are you going to do about it?" "What do you want me to do? I can't control what she says." "You could confront her. You could set boundaries. You could tell her that talking to our son about money and family status is completely inappropriate. She's my mother, and I'm your wife, and Marcus is your son. Who are you going to protect?" He couldn't answer that question either. I stood up and started clearing the dishes. "I need some time to think." "Vivian." "Not tonight, Derek. I can't do this tonight." I went to bed angry. I woke up angrier, and I started planning. My name is Vivian Okafor Morrison. I am 37 years old. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, the daughter of Nigerian immigrants who built a successful medical supply company from absolutely nothing. My parents weren't poor. They weren't even close to poor. My father had started with a single supply contract and built a business that now operated in 12 states. My mother had managed the finances while raising 4 children, all of whom had gone to college on academic scholarships. The Okafor family wasn't poor. We were just black and immigrants, and not the kind of successful that Evelyn Morrison recognized, which meant old money, white money, money that came with the right last name and the right social connections. My parents had money. They had success. They had built something real and lasting. But they didn't have the Morrison pedigree. And to Evelyn Morrison, that meant we were poor. I didn't confront her. I didn't call and demand an apology. I didn't show up at her house to have it out. I didn't ask Derek to intervene. It was clear he wasn't going to. I simply withdrew. The next family event, Easter dinner, I declined to attend. "I'm not feeling well. You and Marcus go without me." Derek looked relieved. He hadn't wanted to deal with the awkwardness. "The Memorial Day barbecue. I have a work deadline. Have fun." The 4th of July celebration. "Someone needs to stay home with the dog." Father's Day brunch. "This is for your family. You should have that time together." Each excuse was calm, reasonable, unchallengeable. I wasn't being difficult. I wasn't creating drama. I was simply absent. And I made sure to be warm and loving to Marcus, reinforcing his sense of security, never saying a negative word about his grandmother. "Why don't you come to Grandma's house anymore?" he asked once. "Mommy has a lot of work, baby, but I'm so glad you get to spend time with her." I refused to let her poison my son's relationship with me. I would not compete with her for his loyalty, but I also refused to pretend everything was fine. The first sign that something was wrong came 6 months after the initial incident. Derek mentioned casually that his mother had been having some health issues. She's been tired a lot. Doctors are running tests. I hope everything is okay. She asked about you, why you haven't been around. What did you tell her? That you've been busy with work. That's true. She says she misses you. I said nothing. Maybe you could come to Thanksgiving this year? Try to mend things? What things need mending? I haven't done anything wrong. I know, but she's my mother. She's getting older. Maybe we could just move past whatever happened. Whatever happened was your mother telling our son that my family is poor and unsuccessful. That's not a whatever. That's a fundamental disrespect. She meant exactly what she said. She just didn't expect consequences. I didn't go to Thanksgiving. The diagnosis came in December. Evelyn Morrison had kidney disease, chronic, progressive, eventually requiring a transplant. Derek told me with tears in his eyes. She's on the transplant list, but her blood type is rare. The doctors say finding a match could take years. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope they find a donor. They want the family to get tested, to see if anyone's a match. Of course, you should get tested. Will you? I looked at my husband, the man who had never once defended me against his mother, who had let her poison our son's mind, who had chosen his family's comfort over his wife's dignity for 6 months. I'll think about it. I got tested, not because I wanted to help Evelyn Morrison, not because I had forgiven her, not because I believed she deserved my compassion. I got tested because I wanted to know. I wanted to know if the universe had a sense of irony. The results came back 2 weeks later. I was a match, the only match in the family. Derek was so relieved he nearly collapsed. This is incredible. We have to tell Mom. She'll be so grateful. Wait. What? I need time to think about this. Think about what? You're a match. You can save her life. A kidney donation is major surgery. There are risks, recovery time, long-term health implications. But it's my mother, and I need to make a decision that's right for me and my body. I'm not refusing. I'm asking for time to consider. Derek didn't understand. He couldn't understand. To him, family was family. Blood was blood. You helped your people regardless of how they had treated you. But I wasn't Evelyn Morrison's people. She had made that very clear. I was just the poor woman who had married her son. Evelyn called me herself 3 days later. Her voice was weak, tired, nothing like the sharp, superior tone she usually used with me. Vivian, thank you for taking my call. Evelyn, Derek told me about the test results. I can't believe, what are the odds that you would be the match? Pretty slim, apparently. I know things have been difficult between us. Have they? I just wanted to say, if you would consider being my donor, I would be eternally grateful. I would spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Making what up to me? Silence on the other end. I don't know what you mean. You don't? Let me remind you. 6 months ago, you told my 8-year-old son that my family is poor, that the Morrisons are the successful ones, that we live in a smaller house because of my side of the family. You made my son ashamed of his own mother. You planted seeds of doubt in his mind about half of his heritage. You used your time with him to diminish me in his eyes. I didn't mean for him to repeat it. So you admit you said it. A long pause. I may have said something I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. You're sorry now, because you need something from me. Vivienne, please, I'm dying. Without a transplant, I have maybe 2 years. That's terrible. I genuinely mean that. No one should face that kind of diagnosis. Then you'll help me? I let the silence stretch. Do you remember what you told Marcus? That my family is poor? That we're not successful like the Morrisons? I said I was sorry. You said my family couldn't provide the way yours could. That we were lesser. that Marcus should be grateful for the Morrison side because we're the ones with nothing. I was wrong. I know that now. Do you? Because I don't think you were wrong by your own standards. I think you meant every word. You just didn't expect to ever need anything from the poor side of the family. Vivienne? Here's my answer, Evelyn. If you need a kidney, ask the successful ones. Ask the Morrisons. Ask the people you've spent years telling everyone are the ones with resources and status and value. No one else is a match. Then I guess success has its limits. You can't be serious. You would let me die because of something I said? I would let you face the consequences of the relationships you've built. You spent years making sure I knew I wasn't really family. You spent years telling your grandchildren that my side didn't measure up. Now you need something only I can give, and you're surprised that I'm not rushing to help? This is cruel. Maybe. But poor people can't afford to be generous. Isn't that what your philosophy suggests? We have to protect what little we have. I heard her crying on the other end. Please, Vivienne, I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell Marcus I was wrong. You'll do those things to save your own life. Not because you've actually changed, not because you see me differently, but because you're desperate. Isn't that enough? No, it's not. I hung up. Then I sat in the silence of my kitchen and waited for my husband to come home. The fight with Derek was the worst of our marriage. He came home already furious, already primed by his mother's tearful call. You told my mother to go ask the successful ones for a kidney? I did. She's going to die, Vivienne. She might. That's tragic. And you're okay with that? You're okay with letting her die because she said something insensitive? Something insensitive? She told our son that my family is poor and worthless. She spent years treating me like a second-class citizen. She never once made me feel welcome in your family. And you're going to let her die for it? I'm not letting her do anything. I'm simply not volunteering to undergo major surgery for someone who has shown me nothing but contempt. She's my mother. And I'm your wife. Where were you when she was poisoning our son against me? Where were you when she was telling Marcus that his mother's family was poor? Where were you every time she made a comment about my background or my family or my worth? I didn't hear, "You heard enough. You just didn't want to deal with it. You wanted to keep the peace. You wanted everyone to get along without you having to actually defend me." That's not fair. What's not fair is being married to someone who expects me to give a kidney to a woman who has never treated me with basic respect. What's not fair is being told I'm cruel for having boundaries. Derek was shaking with anger, or grief, I couldn't tell which. If she dies, I will never forgive you. I looked at my husband, at the man I had loved for 12 years, at the father of my child. If she dies, it won't be because of me. It will be because the successful Morrisons couldn't find a way to help one of their own. I'm just the poor relation, remember? I was never really family. He had no response to that. I'm going to bed. We can talk more tomorrow if you've calmed down. Calm down? My mother is dying. I know. I'm sorry. But my answer is the same. I walked upstairs, leaving him standing in the kitchen. Behind me, I heard him punch the wall. The marriage didn't survive. Not because of the kidney, though that was the catalyst, but because the kidney decision revealed what had always been true. Derek would always choose his family's comfort over his wife's dignity. I filed for divorce 2 months later. Derek didn't fight it. I think he was relieved, actually. He could tell himself I was the villain, the cruel woman who let his mother die, without having to examine his own failures. Evelyn Morrison didn't die, not immediately. She eventually found a donor through an expanded search, a distant cousin who was willing to undergo the surgery. The transplant was successful, though her recovery was long and difficult. She never apologized to me. Not really. Not in any way that mattered, but I heard through friends that she never said another word about my family being poor. Never made another comment about the Okafor side to Marcus or anyone else. Sometimes consequences are their own kind of apology. Marcus stayed with me most of the time after the divorce. He was old enough to understand that something had happened between his grandmother and me, though I never told him the full story. Mom, he asked once when he was 10. Are we poor? I sat down with him. No, baby, we're not poor. My parents built a successful business. I have a good career. We have everything we need and more. Then why did Grandma say that? Because Grandma was measuring success by things that don't actually matter. Money isn't just about how much you have, it's about how you treat people. And by that measure, our family is very rich. He thought about that. Grandma isn't very nice sometimes. No, she isn't. But we can love people even when they're not nice. We just don't have to give them pieces of ourselves to prove that love. Is that why you didn't give her your kidney? I hadn't known he knew about that. That's part of it. But mostly, I made a decision that was right for my body and my life, and sometimes that's the most important thing we can do. He nodded slowly. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Always. My mother visited me after the divorce was finalized. She sat in my kitchen, in my house, in my life, and listened while I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You did the right thing. Did I? Derek thinks I'm a monster. Derek thinks his mother's comfort is more important than his wife's dignity. That's not your problem anymore. I could have saved her life. You could have. But at what cost? Giving a piece of your body to someone who spent years treating you like you were less than nothing? She shook her head. That's not generosity. That's self-erasure. She might have died. She might have, but she didn't. And even if she had, it wouldn't have been your fault. You don't owe your organs to people who despise you. I felt tears forming. Everyone thinks I'm cruel. Everyone doesn't know what you've been through. Everyone didn't watch their 8-year-old come home asking if they were poor. Everyone didn't spend years being treated like a second-class citizen by their own mother-in-law. She took my hands. Your father and I came to this country with nothing. We built everything from scratch. We are not poor. We were never poor. And anyone who thinks differently doesn't deserve access to our family or to pieces of your body. I used her words against her. Ask the successful ones. Poor people can't afford to be generous. Good. Sometimes people need to hear their own ugliness reflected back to them. My mother smiled. You didn't become cruel, Vivian. You became honest. There's a difference. If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever had to set a boundary that others called cruel. Like and subscribe for more stories about dignity, boundaries, and the power of refusing to sacrifice yourself for people who don't respect you. Your mom's family is poor. We're the successful ones. She told my 8-year-old son. He came home asking if we were poor. I didn't confront her. I just stopped attending family events. 6 months later, she needed a kidney. I was the only match. When she called begging, I said, ask the successful ones. My husband called me cruel. I replied, poor people can't afford to be generous. She built walls between us for years. I just stopped climbing over them.